Hi, good evening, and welcome again to another live Mackmyra whiskey tasting tonight. Tonight you're in for a bit of a treat. We're going to be tasting one of our new seasonal releases, Grönt Te, which is green tea. Hi, Gareth, my co-host.
Hi, Shane.
Hi,
Good to see you, buddy.
I think
We're in. And this is what it's all about tonight. Look at
Yes.
this. This is the juice. Wow. There we
Sorry,
go.
we need to apologize to everybody. We've had a technical problem, not once, not twice, but 3 times tonight. So hopefully, Gareth, this is third time lucky. Yeah. We're in for a bit of a treat tonight. Yeah, we are really, guys, we're in for a bit of a treat. We have a very special person joining us tonight who's going to help us introduce Grönt Te to the world, Angelo Dosario. How do you say it? Dosario?
I say Diorazio. Think Italiano.
Hall of Famer, Master Blender, and Chief Nose Officer from Mackmyra in Sweden. So hopefully she'll be joining us in a couple of minutes, and then we'll switch over and go through what Mackmyra is doing with Grönt Te.
What I'd like to just reiterate is not only is this a mighty fine new whiskey, but tonight we got a very special offer. We're going to give away one of these fine bottles absolutely free to you guys out there who can maybe give us a suggestion. Apart from get your tech better, we can't help the gremlins.
Yes, please don't mention the tech.
Give us some feedback, some suggestions about how you'd like maybe future tastings or future activities for Mackmyra. We want to reach out to you. We want to broadcast and brighten up some of your darker evenings out there and in isolation land. So we're happy to do that. So if you guys can reach out on social media to us on any of our social media channels, just give us a clue. Best suggestion will win one of these fine bottles. And I see we've been joined by Angela again. Hi, Angela.
Hi.
Hi, Angela. For the third time tonight. So hopefully this time we're lucky, Angela.
Yeah.
Hopefully the gremlins are gone. Welcome, Angela, and welcome to UK live tasting of Grönt Te tonight.
Thank you.
Angela, I suppose the $1 million question is, how did you get involved with whiskey?
It's a long and boring story.
Okay, let's move on. Right, next question.
We're listening.
We're all ears this time, I promise.
Well, I started off with helping a friend in a stand at a festival, and then from there I got to meet the Glenmorangie people. So I worked for them. I got some really fantastic training from them. I became their brand ambassador, which was not something, that was, I think, the first brand ambassador ever. And from there I went. In 92 it was.
It feels like just the other day, 92.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And now your role within Mackmyra, now you've been Chief Nose Officer for Mackmyra. What is that all about? What do you do?
Well, I create new recipes for the brand, and I do all the whiskeys. I've done all the whiskeys since the start. When I got enrolled, I was enrolled to do tastings in 2004, but the year after Mackmyra started or Magnus started to plan how we were gonna blend it. So since I was the only person within the company who had a lot of sensory knowledge about whiskey, he said, why don't you do it? And from there on I went, and I think it was 5 years later, he called me into his office and he said, people are calling you the master blender, so we need to upgrade your title. And that's, so okay, I became the master blender, and then and that's
so. Angela, was no real form of training? It was just something that you just gravitated towards, and you kind of knew what you were doing, or did you just experiment?
Well, I have to say that my mentor from 97, 98 was Jim McEwen at Bruichladdich.
Jim,
so I think I had a pretty good,
So he was still with Bowmore at that time, just
He was
coming
still
towards
with
the end of a
Bowmore at that
very
time.
long career at that time.
Yeah, he was
at
still with
Bowmore.
Bowmore at that time. And so the knowledge of the sensory part of the whiskey was one thing. And then, putting the casks together wasn't, for me, it wasn't that difficult, because I've always been like a person who thinks in blending terms.
Yeah.
I've always been a person, when I cook, I always think in putting aromatics together. Like that's how it works for me. So I guess it was that was one piece, and then I could ask my friend Jim or my other friends. I got very early. I got invited to become a judge in the big competitions. Jim he was my mentor, and he invited me everywhere. And then so I got to meet the big guys. Not very many women at that time, a bit more now. And so I could I could fill in the gap where I didn't know what how long do you marry a whiskey? I didn't have a clue. So I called one of them, and he said, "Oh, say about 6 weeks or something." Okay, let's marry it 6 weeks.
No way, Angela. That's insane.
Okay. Of course, Jim did a lot of innovative, when he moved across to Bruichladdich and the reopening of Bruichladdich, he did a lot of very innovative things with the casks there. Is that what kind of inspired you to also go on that journey with Jim in terms of cask exploration and particularly finishing?
Well, well, yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because I like his way of thinking. So I'd never thought about it then, because I didn't think like, oh, he's doing that, I'm going to do the same, or I'm going to do similar. But I liked his open-mindedness to to do new things, and I liked his craziness. And that's what inspired me. And then I didn't know that was how I was too, in creating whiskey. I just knew that I liked to do new things. I knew that I wasn't, I'm very inspired by the Scottish guys. They have invented the stuff, and they are doing a fantastic job. But for me, it was more like I'm all right. That's where I start, and then I want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of innovation happened there, and obviously there's been a lot of innovation since. So, where did you get the innovation for green tea? I mean, us English, we love our teas, not so much green teas, but we love a cup of breakfast tea. So, where did that inspiration come from for you, Angela?
From Japan.
Oh.
I was in Japan, and I got to know fantastic green tea, fantastic food and drinks, of course, and whiskeys. But the aromatic profile of green tea was so close to the aromatic profile of a good whiskey, and that's what I realized. So I got the idea when I was there. I got home. I got introduced to Yoko Ono, this fantastic Japanese lady who's a tea grower by family, and she imports these fantastic teas to Sweden. So we met, and from there on it went. I did a small, our 30-liter casks that we sell to private people.
Yes, yeah.
Those are fantastic to do tests on. So I did 4 30-liter casks of 4 different teas, very different teas. And then after 6 months, the stuff inside of the whiskey inside of those were just fantastic. So I decided to do a seasonal, a bit bigger, like 15,000 bottles. So we bought more tea. I did a tea maceration and so on. I can tell you all about that, how that worked. And there we went. And it took 19 months for the stuff for me to be, that I would say was great to use.
I'm interested in the term, the maceration. I mean, I've been studying spirits recently, so I'm really interested in a little bit of geeky knowledge about what that really means. What did you do with the spirit? What did you mix it with? And how did you get that into the barrel?
Yes. Hold on a second.
We're
just have to
holding.
put. I'm just gonna put on a little thing here because I see that my phone is soon going to be.
Okay, we're having some interesting questions coming in, Gareth. So I think
run out of juice.
Yeah, I think what we should do is, if everyone just keeps sending in questions, and we'll try and get to them at some point during the night. We won't get to them all, but we'll try and answer some of the questions when Angela gets a moment, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sending.
Hold on a second. I'll go and get my cable.
Okay, super.
Yeah. Okay, no worries. I just wanted to say thank you for all the guys who've been waiting for us patiently on YouTube tonight. We had a bit of a stuttering start, and we've had some real technical gremlins that have got us, but we've got the start of the show here tonight, and so we're going to find out all about the history of green tea and how it was made. So really looking forward to find out some more of the technical details. We've got just for a limited time only, so we're going to get all these answers out of her. Are you back with us, Angela?
Not yet.
I think she's catching up.
Yeah. And also to the guys behind the scenes who've got us up live, thank you very much. I know it's been 45 minutes of hell, so thank you. Hopefully we've got rid of the gremlins for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Bonk. Keeping on live.
Simon,
so just a quick reminder. Go on, you got a question there. Go for it.
Yeah. Can we have a sneak peek into what's coming? We'll ask Angela. I'm not sure she'll tell us, but we'll ask her. But a good question.
We can only ask. We can only ask. Back with us, Angela. Excellent.
Back, guys.
So
welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we were looking at we were trying to understand what you meant by maceration. What are you actually doing with the teas at that time? These are the last 4 teas that you chose to go into here. Did you have a selection process to get to those 4, or were they recommended?
No, I just well, if you taste the teas, many green teas are they are in the similar category, and these 4 were 4 different categories, you could see. So you can really sense the different aromatic profile of them.
Yeah, so I think they're soft, elegant, nutty, and rich were the terms that I saw in the things, the different flavor profiles that they had. So blending those together.
Yes, exactly. So that I thought it was very interesting, and I remember that Yoko, she was like, "Oh, so are you going to blend these?" Like, no, that's like she couldn't really get that in the beginning. I understand.
Well, we have single malt whiskies. Maybe they have single leaf teas. You know,
exactly.
They're very passionate about the individual brands.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, so the maceration was simply to put the teas separately, of course, into neutral alcohol, and to macerate them there for some hours, and then filtering out the tea leaves. We got a quite strong neutral alcohol that we needed to dilute before we seasoned the casks with it. So initially we thought we were going to dilute it with water, as you do, but then I got the idea to use Oloroso instead. So to dilute it, to dilute it, we used Oloroso, and
you had some lying around there just to fill up a cask.
No, the Oloroso was to dilute the neutral alcohol. Yeah, and then we filled the casks with it, and those casks were Oloroso casks as well. That we had seasoned before. New American oak casks, newly seasoned with Oloroso as well. And that was that was a coincidence. It was not meant to be like that. That was a coincidence. And then, as we do when we season the cask, we do that for 2 months. That's our standard procedure. And then we take out the maceration and add the ready whiskey, sort of. So in this case, it was a 7-year-old malt whiskey, and it stayed in the casks, in the different casks, for 19 months.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So were there 4 large casks, like 200 liters or something?
No,
like
128 liters.
128. Okay.
128. Yeah.
Okay. And then after 19 months?
So you end up with four separate expressions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they were beautiful, all of them, and it was really, guys, if you have the possibility next time you come to Sweden, you must come and do the component tasting with me. It's absolutely so you taste them separately, because that's when you really get them. And then I spent the whole autumn doing well. So I did the test, and then the test went well, and then I did it in a bigger scale. 19 months later, we have the teas, and I spent a lot of time blending them with other casks. And the result that we have now is that I decided to use mostly the most elegant one of them, which was the Sencha, the Yame Sencha tea variation. And then I used very little of the other ones, which were really rich and had a lot of power in them. And so I have them. I still have a lot of casks left.
That's good
those.
news.
Yeah. And a little less of the Sencha, because most of that went
obvious
into
reasons,
this.
correct?
Yeah. And and then I mixed it with other casks, of course. And my starting point when I do my blends is always to use as much as possible of that stuff, which is the things that were, in this case, the tea. So I'm always starting with, I wish I could use 100%, but I can't if it's a bigger blend. But I want to use as much as possible, and then I go from a lot to less, to less, to less, to less, until I see that I have the balance that I want.
Balance, yeah. It's a word I love, because, go on, sorry, Shane.
Is that the same with when you get the alcohol to 46.1? Everybody asks us, Angela, why 46.1? Is it the same way you kind of worked it down till you got to that point and you thought, right, this is where it works best?
Yeah.
Same kind of thing, yeah.
And I think it was magic then when we did 46.1, but I think it's probably as magic if you do 46.2 or 46. But that's where it stayed, and it's we like that figure, so we keep it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's used for a lot. I was picking up on the word that you use, balance, and somebody who's fairly recent into Mackmyra, what I find incredible is the actual balance you achieve within all of the different ranges that we have, with a core DNA spirit, but then blending in things, but with a nice fine balance. Nothing is overpowering. Nothing is really hitting you hard. It's a fine balance, and it's a recipe. And it's interesting to hear that you're fine tuning that, in the tasting process, in this, in the preparation process. So it must take you a long time to actually get through the whole process of putting up a seasonal release. You have to work a long time ahead in the timescales to plan these things.
Yeah. It's in this case we started in 2016 with the tea process, and it's out now. And that, of course, meaning that we have a lot of ready whiskey that we can finish. But it takes some time. It certainly does.
And what's really hard working at Mackmyra is every time you bring out a new whiskey, I go, this is my favorite. You brought out the Calvados, I was like, wow. Then the Winter Sol arrived, I was like, wow. And now you brought out the Grönt Te, and I'm like, hello. This is, it's amazing. How do you know where the market's going? Because you brought out the Calvados last year, and then Compass Brooks also used Charles Duran casks, and they brought out a whiskey liqueur 3 months after we launched our Calvados. Is it just luck? How do you know where the market's going? Or is it, I mean, you're saying this was done in 2016,
4 years in advance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing,
Yeah. Well, I guess it's when you've been in the business for a while, you have a hunch what works and what doesn't. And if you're into thinking of new things, I guess I guess Calvados was a sort of a logical step. And if I'm not mistaken, the Scottish guys just now got the possibility to use those casks. They weren't.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. They've changed
right.
they're
Exactly.
changing the rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
last year when we launched the Appleblom, they were not allowed, but then that happened. So yeah, well, I could say, well, it's magic, it's my magic. But
Don't joke. Some people think you've got a cauldron and you've got the big stir and you're a witch up in an attic somewhere. So there's some truth in it. So one of the questions somebody asked while we're on the subject is there any sneak previews? Can you tell us any secrets that are of new releases coming out this year, or are you not going to tell us, or it's wait and see?
Well, my standard answer is, if I'm telling you, I have to kill you. So you choose.
Okay. I'm going with, I'll buy the next one.
Okay.
No,
we had an interesting question there about how do you get the balance? Is it by nose, or what is it by taste, or is it a percentage of both? How do you understand when balance is achieved, Angela?
Well, sometimes, it's both. It's both nose and taste and aftertaste. But it's sort of something that grows on you. So sometimes I can do things that I really like, and then when I get back the next day, I'm kind of, nah, that was.
What was I thinking?
Okay. That's okay, Angela. But you can do much better with the stuff that you have in your hands.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, and I must admit, when I blended this one, it took me a long time to get this balance, because I really, really did a lot of test trials before I was happy and satisfied. I think this has been the most difficult one for me to, not difficult, but it's like it taking me the longest time to really get where I wanted to go.
Right. Okay. That's good.
Angela, has there been any surprises in what you've done? So, you've made all these different seasonals and different moments, and you've created some really interesting things like birch sap wine cast finish and champagne cast finish. Is there any ones that really surprised you that you've made and gone, wow, hello, that's either bad or good, and just caught you off guard, or did you always know it was going to go there?
Yeah. I don't think I've got that many, bad surprises. I can't say that. I think when you start off an experiment, you get where it's going.
Okay, so you kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah, you kind of know where you're going, and then of course sometimes you can be a bit too certain of the fantastic quality that you have, and then at a certain point you realize that cask was better half a year ago.
Yeah.
Was there any experiment where you had to eventually give up on? You just couldn't find the balance that you were looking for, or does all of your journeys end with a successful product?
I think everything that we've done in a bigger scale, yes.
Okay.
On a smaller scale, no. Of course, on smaller scales, you've done stuff that are interesting, but more fun than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Not
Angela, before we get into tasting, I'm getting thirsty. What has been your favorite whiskey while at Mackmyra?
Oh, it's like asking a mom, which is your favorite child?
Exactly.
That's really difficult. It's always, the latest stuff that you've done, you have it fresher in your memory, and it's like you always build your knowledge on top of what you did before.
Yeah.
So It's really hard to say. I think this green tea.
That's the easy way out, Angela.
The latest one is the best one.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I think just to clear up a question that came on there, somebody was asking why they're mixing New Make Spirit with the tea leaves. I don't think it was New Make Spirit. It was a high grade. It was the alcohol
Neutral alcohol.
neutral alcohol,
Neutral
not New Make
alcohol.
Spirit.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
just to clear that. Just to clear that up.
Well, New Make Spirit is the same as neutral alcohol, but a lot
but
less
much
strong.
stronger.
And a lot. Yeah, neutral alcohol is much stronger, much cleaner.
Yes.
And
so it's not
like,
Vithund. It's not Vithund New Make Spirit.
Exactly. It's not Vithund. Exactly.
It's the top level.
It's not the Mackmyra stuff.
No.
Of course.
Right.
So the typical wonderful design, shows off the color and everything. But what I really like on the side of the label is this lovely little tea leaf, which you've got there. And there's a tiny Japanese symbol there. Do you know what that means? I'm curious. Do you know?
Green tea.
It looks like a house with a dumbbell on top of it. I don't know.
Yes. Oh, I remember someone
there's a
said
tiny
that.
little symbol on there. But
I have to get back on that.
No problem.
I should have known.
Not a problem.
It's the beautiful tea leaf house on the top of the mountain where Yuko's family owns her estate.
I think you just made that up, Angela.
We'll take it though.
But it was a good effort. I applaud you for that one.
Gareth,
A good
enough
one.
with the questions. I'm getting thirsty. Angela, please, will you introduce Grönt Te and take us through the tasting tonight? It's lovely. Please introduce it and let's taste it all together.
Okay. So by the introduction, you want me to talk about all the cask, or just talk a bit about the nose and the taste?
Look, flavour, nose, taste. I think
taste.
we've done the cask. I think we know what went into it. All the hard work for nearly 3.5 years. Let's see what it actually looks like in glass and smell and taste it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it has a very round aroma. It has this sort of nutty,
Savory.
honey. Savory, nutty, honey, aromatic, with I would say the spice is quite intense on a very low level.
Yeah.
So it's like intense, but it's like when you put your nose and you start to think about all the nice musky. Well, musky that's not the word in English, is it?
No.
Musk.
Yeah, it is.
It is, but it's not a great word. It's not a great word.
No,
it normally means a
that's
bad
not-
smell.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't mean musky as the bad one. I meant like the very. You have this perfume with
Floral.
musk. With
Florals.
musk.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
yeah. You know
It's
what
like
I mean?
It's like almost new soap sometimes, we open a packet of soap and it's got that floral
stuff. But there's a spicy element of like cinnamon, nutmeg, like the spices that go into making a cake sort of thing.
Nutmeg is good. Nutmeg
Yeah,
is good,
yeah.
and sandalwood and a lot of fine peppery tones into it.
Oh,
Yeah, the
And,
white pepper on there. Lovely.
Yeah.
I get this really savoury note that I also get in a lot of the like the Barbados rums. There's a really kind of umami that sits in there, a real kind of savoury note that sits alongside the spice. So it's got that intriguing combination. And of course, you can still smell the core DNA of the spirit coming through. The apples and the pears, that fruit still blends in, and you get that balance between all of them.
Yeah. And then I like the freshness of it.
yeah.
It has this eucalyptus.
Very much so. Almost green grass.
Yes,
almost. It's
yes.
lovely.
So green grass, eucalyptus, and then you have this. It's like you have the roasted tones from the oak, but it's also the roasted tones from the tea. So you have well, it's the tea, the hojicha tea, which gives the roasted
Or the nutty flavour.
nutty flavors. It adds its extra tones to it.
Yeah. Can we taste it?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Please. Thank you. Excellent. Wow. And it pretty much delivers everything on the nose into the mouth. There's not a lot that's left behind, really.
Yeah, so it has this. It's quite smooth, a bit oily, but very sort of. I'd say a balanced, fruity, spicy, aromatic mouthfeel to it.
And what I like is right on the end of the finish there's a little dry herby note that just carries on.
Yeah.
It's not salty. It's kind of like a tannin type of thing that lingers on the end with the tongue.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And the I'd say that the different teas are very much sensed in the aftertaste.
Yes.
Yes, so the aftertaste really gives away the beautiful floweriness of the sencha and the nuttiness of the hojicha and the green, beautiful aromatics of both the matcha and the gyokuro tea.
Gyokuro. So can you remind me like in Svensk Rock we do a mix, I think, of 25% of the smoke mash. What kind of percentage of tea input ended up in the final mix in the balance? What kind of percentage were we looking at there?
About between 25 and 30%.
Okay, that's a fine balance.
Yeah.
A fine balance.
You know what I love about it? It doesn't overpower the whiskey, so you still get that beautiful whiskey, taste and smell. It's all there. You get the vanilla, you get the wood, you get the nut, and you just get this hint of green, of soft, of cleansiness. It's really lovely. Angela.
Yeah, so it's a sort of a whiskey that changes when you try it. So for a while it's herbal, and then for a while it's fruity, and then you get herbal tones again, and then you get the spice with the sweetness. So it sort of changes a lot while you try it. That's my sense, anyway.
I agree with you.
Certainly, in some of the early tastings that we did, where we presented this has been by far and away the most popular one on the night, and most people seem to have aligned to this whiskey. So it's certainly hit with the tastings that we managed to do before we were locked down and got into our online world in our studios, getting stir crazy. But when we were out there in early February, before the madness. And we got some early samples, and we tasted it on people, and we wanted some feedback. Absolutely positive. The guys loved it. About 80% of the audiences we were seeing, Shane, when we were doing those tastings, this was their favorite, wasn't it? They all put their hands up for this one.
I must say, Gareth, but in the crowd, when we had male-female ratio as well, we found that both male and female preferred this to the other seasons we taste on the night. So it was a nice,
interesting.
It was really interesting, Angela.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of comments like from guys saying, I don't like tea. I've never liked tea, but now I really
no.
This is got me into tea now.
Angela, I wonder if you could bear with me. I heard from some of my colleagues that you've been inducted into the Hall of Fame. What's this about? And you know when did this happen for you? A real landmark in your career. Can you just walk us through that?
Well,
there you go. There's the picture. Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, that was actually a year ago, just the other week, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just passed.
And it was a complete surprise for me. My colleagues managed to keep it a secret. I think Lisa and Magnus, they knew. And, so they sent me to London to pick up some prizes at the World of Whiskies Award. And I thought, yeah, cool. And Magnus said he wanted to come. And I said, okay, cool.
Been set up.
Yeah. And then that was, I think it's beautiful when you don't expect things like
Yeah.
that, and that's the it's a really great recognition.
It is.
I think I'm the second or third woman that has got it. Second, yeah.
Second, yeah. So we're told.
Yeah, and and what can I say? It's a recognition that you have, you have come to a certain point of your career. I'm aware that not all the fantastic people who does fantastic stuff gets this.
Correct.
So I'm really grateful. I think it was beautiful, and it felt really lovely, and it has given me a certain. If I say pondus, that sounds strange.
You're right,
but
why not?
Yeah, but it's like yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes.
the nature of what you do, as you say, you're working away, blending and tasting and planning, and every 3 or 4 months, all of that work just pops out. And then that's the little bit of that the public get to see. But what they don't get to see is all that hard graft in all the working and the tastings to get to that product. And it's recognition for all that effort. Really, it must be. And I'm staggered by having such a great range in Mackmyra, and yet still maintaining a fantastic balance across all that range, from the core to the seasonal to the moments. The balance is what really gives it for me. And it's a master chef with her ingredients making great stuff.
Thank you. That was beautiful
Thank
words.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for saying it that beautifully.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Guys, I'd like to say we can keep Angela all night, but we've had her online for over an hour now.
The bill's tossing up. The bill's going up.
And Angela is an hour ahead of us, so it's really late where she is.
No worries. If you have 1 or 2 more questions from the guys watching, I can answer them before we go.
Any questions? Any other questions out there, guys, that you'd like to ask Angela? Now's the time.
We have got Richard and Dana on the Facebook group, I think, at the moment. I don't know if Matt's got anything you can pass through for us in there.
No, it's all crystal clear. Everything is crystal clear. They don't need to know anything else.
Everything. I think you did a perfect job as usual.
Exactly. Yes.
All the questions answered. Are you sure you can't tell us what the next seasonal release is going to be? Are you sure?
No, I can't. But I just test blended it today. I did some bottles actually for the Monopoly tests, because they need to test it within a panel before. So new rules. So I did like nearly 5 liters. And I really, 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 really like it.
It can't be better than green tea. Is it better than green tea? It can't be. Sure.
We'll wait to see.
Angela, if you come and visit me at Mackmyra Whiskey Village, you can come and try it.
Yeah, I'm on the plane as soon as them planes are flying. I'm in the air.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
Angela, here's a question. What's the main difference between maturing in the mine in Bodis or in the forest?
Well, in the mine, we have 99% of humidity. So we lose a bit more alcohol in the mine than in the forest warehouse. Well, actually, a lot more. Wrongly said. I mean, the Bodos warehouse has 99% of humidity, so we lose of the volume very little down there.
Yeah.
Yes, and of course, because of that, the alcohol goes down because the volume stays because of the water. That sort of. And in the forest warehouse, it's a much drier climate, so the alcohol goes up.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And the volume goes down.
Yeah.
And the warehouse in the forest warehouse is more built for small casks. So we have a couple of experiment casks in there that are bigger. but it's, you know, all the racks in there are for the 30-liter casks. So that warehouse is more made for the purpose of keeping the people's private casks in, whilst Bodås is for everything.
Storage, yeah.
Yeah.
We got another good question there from
Okay.
Greg's Whiskey. Close to my heart. I'm quite a fan of smoky and peated whiskies. He's saying, might you have any plans to make a heavily peated whiskey? So more than 25%, 50%, maybe 75% is a heavily peated Octomore type whiskey within our future, Angela? Is that
You never know.
You never know. Well, I had another question myself on that, because we do Vithund as a new mixed spirit, which is sensational for a brand new spirit.
Yes.
Have we got any plans to do a Vithund with smoke?
I get that question a lot.
I thought I was being original.
No, good.
Well, it was a very good question. It was a very good question, and I'd say that I don't know how much Vithund is selling generally in the world. So it's like a fun product.
Yeah.
And of course, sometimes you release fun products, so why not? But it's never going to be like a big thing. It's more for
not for malt whiskies, but in the cocktail world, I think it's got a really good definitive profile, and it gives a really good base for a very interesting cocktail. So a smoky cocktail might be something to be like. Do you have a favorite cocktail with whiskey, Angela? As one of our guys was asking that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not super good with cocktails, but oh my God.
I mean, it doesn't have to be whiskey. Just enough a whiskey cocktail. Any cocktail at all that you might be a fan of.
Any cocktail at all. Gin tonic.
Gin tonic.
Angela.
I have to say, Angela, I've got to admit, at 5 o'clock GMT, I was in my garden, had a hard day's work, and I had a G&T in my hand as well. So, it hits a spot when you need a G&T. You need a G&T.
We make two very, very good gins.
Yes.
Yeah,
do you
absolutely.
like the lab gin?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Creator, beautiful. I love this stuff. The high alcohol in that and the mixture of the herbs and the spices in there gives such a good flavor base. I mean, I can drink it neat as a spirits guy, as a cask strength spirits guy. I can definitely drink that neat, but mixed in with the tonics that we have, the great tonic range designed for these things, it's a wonderful drink. So maybe in the future we might come on to doing a specialist night with cocktails and doing gins and things like that. So we'll put that one in the diary. But thanks for your insight into that. Were there any more questions, Shane?
Not that I've seen, but just a heads up, guys. We're also doing something interesting with gin later in this year. We can't tell you, but watch this space.
Okay,
good night?
I'm just going to say, obviously it's been a great show tonight. I've really enjoyed it. I need to just prompt guys about what's happening in the rest of the week. So tomorrow at 7:30 GMT, we've got a really interesting night. We're doing an 80s heavy metal throwback night for our 2 releases that we did in conjunction with our heavy metal partners and with the bands Scorpions and Motorhead. There they are. There's Motorhead. Look, and there's Lemmy.
And I'm a bit jealous that I haven't been invited.
I know.
Well, we can put you on the invite list,
but we do have a special guest from the distillery.
Yes,
we got somebody from the distillery, and we got a special guest. We've got a special guest who's going to be maybe performing for us tomorrow night. So that should be interesting. If you want a bit of a laugh at 30, tune in. We'll put all the links out.
All right.
And on Thursday, we're very excited to collaborate with our partners in Whiskey Adventures Facebook website. They have an audience of about 8,500 whiskey drinkers. A great group that was set up by a good friend of mine, Jamie Dimmick, about 3-4 years ago, and has turned into a monster group. So we're having a private tasting with those guys. Those guys have been buying our sample sets like crazy. We sold out last week. We had to put some more stock in. And we've got the last ones out today, hopefully. So we got a large audience, and they're all going to join in with a live tasting of all of our core and the green tea, which we put in on the back. So I hope those guys have tuned in tonight and managed not to open it. Keep it fresh for Thursday, because if you drunk it all tonight, then you better go out and buy some more. So really looking forward to working with Jamie. Jamie's coming on live with us as a presenter, which is going to be great fun. and we're going to go through our core range and the green tea and have a bit of fun with the guys there and an interactive tasting. There will be lots more events coming. It's all in the diary on the website for Co UK.
Yeah.
So we're all busy, and we appreciate very much that you guys can still supply us in these very trying times with some great liquids and some great distractions from what's going on in the world.
We need that. Yeah.
Yes. And Angela, thank you ever so much for giving up your time. It's been really lovely having you on the show. It's been exciting. Perhaps if we invite you again, you could come back and on the new season or the new release.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You two together, you're really great. you kind of match each other.
Thank you very much, Angela. So before we go, guys, just a reminder that if you want to be part of the show, if you want to get involved, either as a guest or if you have a small club and you want to do a private tasting, get hold of us on one of our social media websites, streaming across the bottom. We'll touch base with you.
Lastly, if you want a free bottle of this
if you want a free bottle of this, now's the chance.
Get onto our social media websites and all our channels and just give us an idea what you'd like to do. We'll pick one, and this will be coming your way, a full 70 cl bottle, no sample size.
What is it that you want people to say?
It's great.
What is it that you wanted people to say?
We want people to come up with basically suggestions and ideas about how to make these interactive shows interesting, exciting, fun, informative. We're new to this. Everybody's new to this. We've been doing this a few weeks. We'd like to think the tech would have stabilized by now, but it's getting a bit dodgy sometimes. But it's about making sure that we provide the right content to people, and it's entertainment. It's fun, and it's about providing that. So we're looking for not just our ideas, but what do the audience would like to see? What would they want us to do?
Good question.
We can come up with ideas, obviously. We can come up with ideas, but let's reach out to our audience and say, what do you fancy doing? What would make an evening for you? Because I know that just talking to a lot of people who are isolated, they really look forward to having an event in their diary where they're going to socialize with people and be part of a community. We're a very big whiskey community. And this is not just a public service, this is information, it's education, it's fun, and having guest stars like you, Angela, make the night for us. So thank you very much indeed. Really great having you on the show tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Guys, take care, be safe, look after yourselves, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you, Angela.
Okay.
Thanks, Gareth.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.